Thank you, Liz, and it's an honor to be with these other panelists, and I strongly agree with what has been said by others on the panel today, and so I try and put that through the prism of what you asked, Liz, which is, can we connect that to what's going on in Israeli society? It is terribly depressing, the reality that there is something of a consensus, not wall to wall, but far more deep than one would like to imagine, that is not questioning what's going on in Gaza. There is a feeling that a social contract has been broken when it comes to the Israelis being held in Gaza, the indifference of the Israeli government to that is felt by many. But if I'm going to connect the threads, then what I would try and get across is, if you want to understand why the situation is so bad, yes, one goes to the history, which is long-standing. One has to bring in the factors that are more immediate. The Israeli media has played a really terrible role, and I think people will look at this. And in fact, some Israeli human rights NGOs, you mentioned those, have written to the Attorney General saying that Israel Channel 14 is operating as Radio Rwanda did in that genocide, in encouraging these crimes. But the heart, beyond that media coverage of why we are where we are, is everything that's been said here. It's one word. It's impunity. Because Israelis do not see cost or consequence, do not see an incentive structure which makes them question whether this is the right path. And I don't want to paint a distorted picture. Of course Israelis will turn round and say, you know, how dare they sanction this? And unfortunately, it's been raised here. They will use the accusation of anti-Semitism. And I want to align with what Ministers Belio and Rogilo said. When you cheapen that accusation and you use it recklessly, something that is real and serious, like anti-Semitism, loses its meaning, and it undermines the struggle against anti-Semitism and racism. So I fundamentally believe that if one can change that incentive structure, then a cohort of Israelis will say, yeah, I don't like what they're doing. But they will also say, okay, maybe something is going wrong here. Maybe I have to think again. And when it comes to changing that incentive structure, we've heard it here, but maybe I can draw on the things that I think might be most impactful. First, I very much align with the geopolitics is shifting, and if the West is determined to prove to the world that international law, human rights, the UN Charter, the international court system are a con, then a world which sees a value in those things will have to double down in trying to make them meaningful, as we've heard from others. It's 70 years in April to Bandung, and the work of decolonization has not been finished. But I would also say this, and I don't think anyone does after the mobilizations we've seen, but let's double down on people power. Because we are all consumers of products. We all buy things. Some are unionized workers. We all consume media. And if our media is saying, well, we don't have anyone in Gaza, we can't use citizen journalists, that's not good enough. We make choices every day. There are sovereign wealth funds. Some people are sports fans. If the international sporting authorities are not going to do the right thing and say a country committing these crimes cannot participate as normal in sport, then just as done with South Africa, when it was protesters, it was fans who made normal sport impossible in an abnormal reality of apartheid and genocide, that has to happen again. And one can document, I think it was referenced here, one can document not just what the leadership is doing, but if Israeli soldiers are going to take to social media and post evidence of their own criminal activity, then as Blinne said, if they then want to travel, there are things that can be done via litigation today. They should be on notice, and the world should have an interest in putting guardrails around something that's paid insufficient attention to, that the killing fields of Gaza are testing out the weaponry of robotic, automated AI weapons, things like the Lavender system, that may be coming to a neighborhood near you very soon, and that should concern everyone. But I want to say one other thing, because that's one side of the equation, right? How we might change the Israeli incentive structure. But there has to be another side to that equation, and it's perhaps not talked about enough, and it's difficult to talk about. But Jewish Israelis will have to be offered a way out. Jewish Israelis will not be secure while Palestinians are living under a regime of structural violence and their rights are denied. But they need to know that they can be secure under a different reality. There's no two states on the table today, let's be honest. What might be on offer is the formalization of a Bantustan. And perhaps partition is driving this zero-sum reality of apartheid. So we need to sketch a future in which the replacing of an ethno-nationalist regime guarantees that after that is gone, Jewish Israelis will actually be more secure than they are today. That has to be on offer.
Okay.
I don't want to sound Pollyannish, but I think that is more realistic than the idea that Jewish Israelis will be safe if they remove or try to ground Palestinians into submission, and that's not a safe world for anyone.
Thank you, Daniel.